would you like to go first, little lady?
Okay. So, do you want to just do like explain our article or whatever, and then
Yeah, perfect.
Anyways, okay, I'll go first. So, my article was culturally relevant pedagogy, and it was talked about the incorporation of specific teaching styles that are aimed to incorporate Indigenous learning styles.
Cool.
So they kind of talked about how like their Indigenous cultures can influence how they learn best. So because it's such a what's the word I'm looking for? Observation-based learning.
Right.
Is kind of like how they learn within their culture.
Yes.
So, like learning how to fish and stuff like that. It's all through observation.
Yeah.
So it kind of talked about how incorporating that into a classroom might benefit Indigenous students.
Right.
And then it also talked about incorporating some of their cultural ideals and knowledge into the classroom. So using words from their language or incorporating and key teachings and talking about important Indigenous people. And like, for example, you could talk about Indigenous people in science and important figures in that field, and just making them feel included that way.
Right.
And then it also talked about how, even though this is a suggestion, like not all Indigenous students will learn this way. It's just
right.
Something that might help if traditional or lecture-based learning isn't working for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really cool. Had lots of important information. Yeah.
So have you thought at all about how we can kind of take stuff from that for our unit plan? Did you look at
that? For our unit plan, yeah, so I was just thinking about like the observation base. So if we included, well, we kind of already thought about including it, but including, and I had like read this already when we were kind of making our ideas. So like kind of thought of it. So just observing the world around you.
Yeah.
And also like practicing respect for nature and stuff like that. So
right.
ideals are kind of included in our lesson plan.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And even if we could find, like, there's probably some type of pedagogy quote about Indigenous respect for nature, just so we should put that in the lesson plan.
And then there was also, in the article, they talked about time and how a lot of Indigenous communities aren't like tied to time or like structured in time, how we structure time. Yeah. So like allowing students to work at their own pace and at their own time would work really well. And we kind of made the lesson or what we want to do in a way that it shouldn't take too much time, but they can also work however much time they need, I guess.
Yeah, like how we have the guide of like you should, like if you want to break it down so it's even every day, but if you do it different. Yeah. Cool. That's great. Sounds good. Love it. I don't know how you just made your screens like that. Just let me see if I can do it. Is there anything else you have to add before I go or
no? So I'll add the reference in like the document where I tag this video. And then, so my key point from the article, those were kind of my key points, but the big one was just how culture can influence how they learn and then how students learn. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Awesome. I decided to do mine on, I don't think it's a big secret that I've been like pretty shook by the Nova Scotia shootings that happened last Sunday. So I just kind of wanted to look into, because I was actually thinking about it, and I went back looking at our YouTube videos that we did, because I remember saying the words, but we didn't record it. I remember saying like, oh yeah, I read the chapter on school shootings and mass violence, and I was like, it's not really super applicable for us because we're in rural East Coast, but it was interesting to read about anyway. And then 7 days later, like to have like such a tragedy, I like couldn't anyway, I just feel so ignorant. So I found an article called Your Job is to Take Care of Us, teaching our way through the Boston Marathon bombing. So sort of like a similar type of tragedy. So this girl, Dana Bentley, she was an elementary school teacher in Boston. So she had a lot of really good advice. But I like, because that's all I've been thinking about was like, if you're a teacher, how would you deal with this? And I almost think in a weird way, it's easier to talk about it to like an elementary school, although you could argue it's harder. But you basically just gather, like what she said, like really listen and understand what they understand, and then kind of foster their thinking in a way like so they understand it in like a safer way. So she said like almost basically pay attention to how they're playing on the playground, what they're saying, what they're doing, and then you come in and you play with them and you sort of like ask important questions like why is he a bad guy? Why did he do this? What about the good guys? Like how did they help? And sort of like help their thinking and deep issues. But I always struggle with like what do you do with a grade 10 who like understands enough to like you can't really base it on play, but then you want to protect them in some ways. But like she said that they're a part of the world. We can't pretend like they're not a part of the world.
Yeah, you can't really sugarcoat it.
You can't sugarcoat it. So you just have to kind of bring it up as it is. And she says to take an inquiry stance when students are developing critical awareness. So to act as a facilitator and allow students to kind of like negotiate the meanings of things sort of by themselves. And in times like this, it's not the teacher's job to be the holder of knowledge. They must be willing to embrace the uncertainty of co-constructing meaning alongside children. And she just said that teachers should work to engage in culturally relevant pedagogy to work towards students' critical awareness. So that's sort of what she talked about a lot, is that critical awareness and like how to like make students be critical aware, but then know that they're in a safe environment and that usually that they're safe and stuff like that. So was and she also sort of said like a lot of the other readings and scholarly articles about this type of stuff just sort of say that you have to use your intuition to talk about like what the students feel, but you might not like, but having intuition in these times of tragedy is like often not really that common. And so it's better to just sort of like facilitate discussion. And then like if you can bring in like in this example, they brought in a police officer from Boston who came in later and talked to them, and that sort of made everyone feel better. So if you could bring in someone like that, it would be good. And that's really it. That's the story. So we're lucky where we did such a broad book that we had lots to talk about. You pick whatever. And then I was thinking how we can incorporate it into the lesson plan is we could just do like an emotional check-in once a week. Just like, I don't think I can make like Marcia did like almost like Google surveys or whatever, but I don't think you can do them if you don't have a Google Classroom account, but you can just make a survey monkey and just say like, how are you feeling anxious wise or mood wise? Like, what are you doing to try and like make yourself feel better? Do you want a phone call? Like, do you think you need more information?
Just like a check-in kind of.
Yeah. But like more of an emotional check-in than like a workload check-in maybe is what I'm sort of thinking. And that won't take that much work, so.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot to say. The reason why I thought this article would be good to connect to our book is because we kind of talked about how it talked a lot about Black culture and incorporating that into school. But one thing we said that it didn't talk about is Indigenous culture and incorporating that. So I thought this was like a good kind of bridge. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, very cool. Anything else? We'll take us off recording now. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Stop.